From Beyond Marketing, it's the 20-Minute Call, a podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, check out the 20-Minute Call hosted by me, James LeBarry. Beau Riebe is one of the purest air sport athletes in the world today. If you don't follow him on Instagram, you're missing out on some of the most extraordinary flying by someone who truly loves the freedom it brings. You can feel his passion in his videos. Beau has also cracked a code that many have spent a lifetime trying to solve, avoiding the 9-to-5 office grind. On any given week, he can be found in some of the most beautiful locales ranging from the mountains of Norway, Switzerland, Italy, Slovenia, and France to the lunar landscapes of canyons found in Utah and Arizona. Beau is also the introduction to millions of people making their first jump as the host of USPA's Tandem Skydive Assumption of Risk Waiver video with Bill Booth. Additionally, he works for Performance Designs and is an instructor for Flight 1 and Flight 1 Military, while having the incredible talent and video on socials to make anyone green with envy. It would be natural to think Beau would flaunt some kind of ego, but he doesn't. Beau is one of the most humble, easygoing guys you'll ever meet, and an ambassador for every sport he participates in. I can also say that everything I've just read is without hyperbole. Welcome to the 20-Minute Call, Beau Riebe.
Hey, thank you very much. That's quite the intro. I appreciate all your kind words. That's cool to hear. I haven't really heard anything like that before. Kind of funny. Gives me the shivers.
You're doing life well. I like the way you live life, and I'm been really intrigued to talk to you. And as I mentioned here in the intro, you're a super humble guy, right? Like, you're very easygoing. You're just like, you're not even trying to be humble, I don't think. You're just being who you are, and that's just,
sure.
That's who you are. But I want to know about your family, because I have a feeling that you're who you are because I'm guessing of where you come from, that your people. Can you share with me a little bit about your family?
Cool. That's a nice first question. Yeah. I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I'm the baby of two siblings, and my parents, their names are Steve and Ann. My older brother is 8 years older than I am, and my older sister is 6 years older than I am. And family was always like a super important part of our life, and it's easy to say that, of course. But like, as I grow older and see other, I don't want to just say specifically families, but people in the world, kind of like learn the importance, or I guess the benefits that I had growing up of like being so close to my families. We would always do activities together. It was us going out backpacking, or us going out skiing, or us going out pretty much anywhere at any time. Was always as a family. We didn't have a ton of like family friends. We didn't do a lot of things in big groups with other people very often. So it was pretty much us five everywhere we went, which was inconvenient on a ski hill because most ski lifts are only 4 people and they wouldn't let us squeeze 5 on. So like, definitely growing up with a family, doing things with them, I think made me appreciate the important time that you get to spend with other people, because they are fleeting. Like, my brother went off when I was 10 years old. He went to college, so he was gone. My sister went off when I was 12, and I remember being alone and being like sad. I think that's the first time I remember crying, is when my sister left for college. And I shed the most, at that time, as a whatever 12-year-old, the most embarrassing tears. Like, I'm so sad that my sister's leaving. So we were always pretty close, for sure.
And you grew up on Mercer Island, which is an island, for those unfamiliar, on Lake Washington, which is real close to Seattle, which to me is a super cool town. But what does growing up in the Pacific Northwest and specifically Mercer Island even look like? Like, what was your childhood like?
now as a being in a community like skydiving that's so global and international, I look back at my childhood and think it's pretty privileged. Mercer Island is a very wealthy community. It's a very wealthy town. We were very middle class on that island, but even as a middle class, white person in the Seattle area, you're still living pretty comfortably. But um, I grew up as a diver, so like my main sport as a kid was diving, which is kind of unusual. I got into it because my brother and sister did it, and I was like 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, when I was doing flips off the diving board, just trying to copy whatever they were doing. I kind of grew to do more and more diving as other kids were doing baseball or soccer or maybe more your traditional sports. But I kept with diving, and that's what like kind of dominated my life as a kid. We would do other like kind of casual sports like skiing all winter long, like I mentioned, with my family, my parents, and then we would go backpacking, those kinds of things. But the main thing that I did outside of school was dive, pretty much. Like it was a couple days a week when I was young, and then it grew into 4 or 5 days a week through high school. Did it in school as well as at a like a club level. So it's regional, but then it becomes national as you compete and you get on to higher levels.
And this is why I think it's important that I do research, because if I don't know about you and you're too humble to actually say that you were a 2-time state champion and an All-American 4 years in a row for diving. So it isn't like this was just like a little thing you did on the side.
Yeah, it took over a big part of my life for sure. It was really, it was fun. I think like that's kind of where I first experienced or got to see um, how sports can bring you to so many new people. And what I mean by that is like I was just the other day, just yesterday, I pulled out an old diving bag that I had from when I was, let's just say, like 11 years old or something as a kid. It was a backpack, and in the pocket of it is all these little passes. You'd go to competitions and you would get passes to like show that you're an athlete there. And there was one from Texas when I was 11. There was one from Missouri. I think I was like 13 years old. It was 2002 or 2003. There was a couple from California. There was a couple from Oregon when I was young. And it's just like being in that, or having those opportunities as such a young kid to travel and meet people all over the country, definitely like spurred this little desire to not sit still and to go different places and meet different people. And luckily, like diving kind of translates to skydiving in the same way, that you get to travel, you get to meet so many people. And I can definitely see where that kind of came from as a kid. I mean, I remember going to the Alamo with my mom when I was, I think, 10 or 11, whatever age I was, and just being like, oh my gosh, this is so different. Like, this is where like there were, what is it, Davy Crockett or whomever it was at the Alamo, and I just learning about history is really exciting. But yeah, diving definitely was a big part of my life, and I did it all through high school. Competed, like you said, was state champion for 2 years. Um, was All American all 4 years in high school. Went to college for diving as well. It was a lot, which was good, but I also saw maybe my first like view of burnout, which as a skydiver, you've probably heard that term before. um, but as a young athlete, ramping up to being at like seeing the path that could take you toward Olympics or toward world level competition, and as a 15-year-old or 14-year-old being like, that means I have to do this all day, every single day, and that's all you do. And I chose to not go in that direction, but it was kind of, I suppose, weird. Like at that time, looking back at it.
Would you say that diving has helped you be a better pilot, like, or with skydiving in terms of the spatial awareness of your body in air, or am I completely overreading that?
I wish it had helped more. I'm not very good in free fall. Like, I'm fine. I've got plenty of jumps. I know how to handle myself, but I was never a free fall ninja, as you would say. Like, it obviously does help with spatial awareness. And yes, I have always been aware of what is up and down and where my body parts are and that kind of thing. But skydiving, you're so much more like flying with the wind at, 120 to whatever miles per hour. Whereas in diving, you are doing a move from like solid ground or from the board, and you're setting all this momentum and rotation based off of that push, that extension from the board. Whereas obviously in skydiving, you're using the air to manipulate your body. I always wish it helped a little more. It helps in base jumping though. In base jumping, like, because you're kind of doing the same type of thing as diving, you don't have to hit water at the end of it. You have to get belly flat and then you have to pull. So it did definitely help for aerials and base jumping. When I was starting and kind of getting into that, I was like, oh yeah, this is natural, easy.
I don't know if you noticed, but whenever I'm referring to you through, so far, I don't refer to you. I feel like calling you a skydiver is like shortchanging you, because you are so much more than just a skydiver. But let's just pivot for a moment. You mentioned you went to college for diving, but you didn't just go to any college. You went to the U.S. Air Force Academy, which, you don't think about diving in Air Force Academy. And I had assumed it was because, did you come into skydiving at Air Force Academy, or was that something that you were into before?
Yeah, great question. So my path went from high school to the Air Force Academy. I was recruited for diving, like as a sport, springboard and platform diving. They have the Air Force and Navy and Army Academy all have their own sports teams, sports departments. They're kind of like a normal university or college in that way. So I was recruited for diving, where I went and I did compete with the Mountain West Conference, their Division One, and I did okay. Like, I wasn't doing crazy amazing, but I did fine. And then after your freshman year at the Air Force Academy, you have an opportunity to try out for their parachute team, which was always a goal of mine. I had done one tandem skydive when I was in high school, but like no background in skydiving or anything like that. Who doesn't want to jump out of planes? So I tried out for their parachute team, which is kind of like a miniature version of the Golden Knights. So they have a demonstration team and a competition team. And you try out for the team. If you make it, you then go on to either do demonstrations or competitions, but you also teach others, going through kind of a first jump program at the academy itself. So after freshman year, diving, springboard diving, platform diving at the Air Force, I went to skydiving, tried out for the team, and made the team. And then kind of you have to leave the other extracurriculars, because being on the skydiving team then eats up the rest of your life.
And you were also president of the freestyle ski team.
Oh, I was, I guess. Yeah, it was. Well, that was pretty small.
Oh, yeah.
That's maybe something that looks better on paper than it was in real life. There was like 5 of us or so, and we were just, it's college. Oh, it's college. I say it with quotations because it's not really, not a very fun college. But that ski team, we skied a lot. We tried to ski a lot anyway. So trying to get other people into skiing, trying to keep them free, keep them like pushing their skiing abilities in terms of, we were doing freestyle stuff. So it was like park skiing. So it was just kind of getting people up there, filming, coaching, but on a pretty small level, just buddies kind of hanging out, looking for an excuse to go ski.
Were you a pretty squared away cadet, or how were you as a cadet with sort of a lot of rules and regulations?
I was okay. I mean, I was not like a fuck up by any stretch. I was fine in academics. I got good grades. Generally, like, not really a troublemaker. Didn't really cause many issues. But eventually, I did start to get some unnecessary attention drawn to some things that I goofed up on. And that kind of led to my demise in the Air Force. Yeah, it's tough. Like the Air Force Academy was neat. It was a cool experience. It was a bit, crazy. You're 18 years old, and there's some good things that came out of it and some not great things that came out of it as well, personally. And I think I'm glad it all happened, but I didn't leave as a good cadet. I didn't leave as a really bad cadet either. Okay, I wasn't like I was terrible. I just eventually started to not be able to follow all the rules. Not like super important rules, but rules that mattered to them in that moment. And they didn't like that.
I'll give you the out, even though that both I and everyone listening is so curious about the hijinks that caused you some trouble. But in terms of being on the Wings of Blue, were you on the competition team or on the demo team? What were you doing with the team?
I always liked doing demonstrations more. I liked flying the parachute. I thought the challenge of landing parachutes into tight spaces was really inviting. Traveling, going to meet different people all over the place. I've always enjoyed interacting with new people, and so that was really drawing to me. So I was on the demonstration team and racing to get your pro rating so that you can go around and jump into these cool shows.
And then after you graduate from the Air Force Academy, you went to University of Iowa. Do I have that right?
So I didn't graduate from the Air Force Academy. So I transferred out. Yeah. Yep. So all those little hiccups that I briefly mentioned led to me opting to leave the academy. And I had about a year left of school to finish a degree, and I transferred to the University of Iowa, which was random. But so the story there is that it was an Air Force it was Iowa versus Oklahoma football game at one of those bowl games that happen over New Year's times. And we had jumped into the game, and I went up and was talking to the cheerleaders and met one of the cheerleaders from Iowa. And then we started hitting it off. And then months down the road, I left the academy and was like, well, I need to go, I want to finish school. So I decided to go to the same school as that girl. And of course, we broke up within a few days of me being there. So then I'm at a brand new school, nobody in a state in the Midwest where I've never really been. And I'm in a wheelchair. So that was a fun month.
If you're a DZO or DZM listening to this podcast and you're not using Burble, I've got a question. Why not? If the reason is price, what's the cost of your time? Other booking and manifest softwares are a one-size-fits-all. Burble was built from the ground up by a DZO for DZOs to maximize efficiency. Now, isn't that nice? There's no software that compares. Choose Burble. Burble. I'm going to let you off the hook off of many things, but the wheelchair, why?
Yeah, for sure. So that was skydiving. Yeah, I had a skydiving accident. So this was 2013, August of 2013. I had a crash in Lost Prairie in Montana at their boogie. I had 800 jumps at the time, and I just did a low turn. Didn't know what I was doing at all, and just smashed into the ground without really realizing it ahead of time. Like looking back, as somebody who's gotten very deep into canopy piloting, clearly I had no idea what I was doing because I didn't even try to do it. I just turned and was accepting my fate. And then that didn't work and I hit the ground. So I broke my femur and I broke my ankle on the other leg, as well as severely dislocated that ankle is upside down. I remember after hitting and bouncing, and the parachute was wrapped all around me, and I tried to move my right leg first, and that's the one that the femur is broken and it wouldn't move. And I was like, well, this is weird. So people are running toward me, but I'm kind of just I was 23 at the time. I was like, I'm tough. I'm fine. 22 or 23. So then I throw the parachute off of my left leg and my foot is facing the wrong direction. And that's when I was like, uh-oh, I'm not okay. So I quickly just sat there, I suppose, and let everything happen. But anywho, got it all fixed. But 2 weeks after that accident, I was supposed to be starting school at the University of Iowa. So I'm still in a weird wheelchair for another month after that. So I'm at a new school, don't know anybody, in a wheelchair, and trying to make friends. So to make friends, I thought this would work. I wrote, or my sister actually, she came down and she helped me get sorted. Her and her husband helped me get sorted in the apartment I was living in. And for my wheelchair, they put a sign on the back of my wheelchair that says, "Hi, my name is Beau. I broke both my legs skydiving, and yes, you can push me." I didn't really get many people that push me. Mostly it was in bars. People would come and sit on my lap, and it's like, oh no, actually, don't do that.
I was thinking, at least you got a great story as to
Yeah,
why you're in a wheelchair. It's funny, as I'm watching you recall that, I can see that there's like a little bit of discomfort or almost embarrassment as you recall, like you recount it, like, yeah, that was kind of an interesting time in my life for sure.
yeah, it was. I mean, there was so much up in the air. Like I was 23, like I said, and well, so I had hurt myself. I was in a school getting an economics degree and had no idea what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I had just gotten out of the Air Force Academy where they kind of, and everything I'm about to say, like, don't take it as a bad thing toward the academy, but it was my own experience. But they make you believe that your life in the Air Force is everything. And if you're not going to become an Air Force officer, for example, then you're nothing and there's no hope for you. And that was how I felt coming out of the academy. And so it was very, nerve wracking. So then it's like, I'm in a new school, injured, studying econ. All my hopes and dreams of being a pilot were just gone. And it's like, shoot, okay, I have to figure out a normal way to do this life. Whereas a year ago, my whole next 20 years were planned and I was fine. But now it's on me. It was a tough time. Like I can sit and laugh at parts of it, but there were definitely some tough parts too.
It's interesting to talk about those low points and you being a young skydiver and hurting yourself. And I'll tell you what went through my brain when you mentioned, when you made your first tandem, is I can't imagine you would have thought that all these years later, you would be the face that introduces people to, like, literally everybody in the United States is seeing your face in that classroom. And let me say, the video is fantastic. You're very professional and, really do serve as a great intro to the sport. So, I mean, do you ever have a pinch me moment like, wow, could not have imagined that?
I think my pinch me moments are the realization of how far skydiving has taken me, that I've been able to maintain a lifestyle that I've wanted and succeed in some parts, kind of like what you mentioned in terms of the video, through this silly sport of jumping out of airplanes. And that's the part that is pretty mind blowing, I suppose. I talk to other people in the world that are not involved with skydiving at all, and they're just like, you did all this through skydiving. Maybe I'm like, I did all this through skydiving, but it is pretty amazing what the sport has, where it's led me.
One thing that caught my attention about you, and I think I met you for the first time at a nationals at Eloy, and you were hosting for Skydive TV. But what impressed me about you is what I knew going into meeting you that made me think, wow, there's something more to this guy, was that you had basically saved somebody's life by, I don't want to get this wrong, I don't know if you donated your stem cells or
Bone marrow.
Bone marrow, excuse me.
Yeah.
Anybody with any kind of medical degree is like, what an idiot I am. So tell me about that, because that is quite extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
At least it seems like to me. And I don't know what that's about. And when you did donate your bone marrow, was there any effects of that? Educate me on this.
Yeah, sure. So The Be the Match Registry is a national bone marrow donor drive or donor registry where it's really easy to sign up for. They'll mail you a kit and you do a cheek swab on both sides of your mouth, and then you put that it's like a Q-tip thing back in the box and you mail it back to them, or they do drives at like universities. I signed up when I was still at the Air Force Academy. They had a drive, so you just went and you spent like 5 minutes swabbing your cheek. You stick the thing in the box and there you go. And then most people that sign up, they kind of never really hear back. Like it's pretty rare to actually be matched with somebody. But it was less than a year after I signed up, let's say 8 months or so, that I got an email saying that I was a preliminary match with a woman, or I think just a person. They didn't even tell me if it was a man or female at that time. So I think I was a preliminary match with a person who had a type of leukemia, and they had to go in for further testing. Or they asked me if I would go in for further testing, where it's like, of course, yes, for sure. So then you go in, you get your blood drawn, they do some more tests. They are trying to make sure that all of your, and I'm not going to say it totally correct either, but essentially like all of your white blood cell, your immune systems, they match correctly, because what's going to happen is the person with leukemia, they are going to, it's essentially cancer of the bone is what they have, or the stem cells, like you mentioned. So they're going to have to defeat their body, their immune system, completely drain it down all the way, and then put your white blood cells in, and then rebuild their immune system completely based off of yours. So you have to have all these indicators that match. And so through more testing, flew out to Washington, D.C. to do more testing then. And then it turned out like, yep, you're a match. Let's go with it. Still didn't know who the person was, just knew that they had, it's called acute myeloid leukemia. And
sorry to interrupt, were you scared?
I don't think so. Like, I don't remember being scared. I remember being, you're excited. You don't really know. Like, you're kind of nervous, I suppose, because you're about to go through this surgery, whereas they have to go in for the version that I had. They go in and they actually put a needle in your pelvis and they extract the bone marrow. There's a different way to do it that's a little bit more simple, where they take it from like the blood and they centrifuge the blood and they extract the white blood cells and then put blood back in. But due to the type of leukemia my patient had, they couldn't do that way. So they had to do the surgical kind. So I think I wasn't like frightful. I was just, excited, but nervous. They say that the chance of survival is still less than 50%. It goes from like 10% to 40% or something like that. I was hoping that it all worked out. And it was an amazing experience. It's been an amazing experience for the past 10 years, which is crazy. So I donated the Be the Match Foundation flew my mom out there to be with me in the hospital. I had to spend, I think, a night or two in the hospital afterward. Then your body is pretty much just like weak, super weak and super frail. So for the next about 2 to 3 weeks, I believe, I was on bed rest at the Air Force. So that's where you're like excused from any physical activity. You're just pretty much laying there because your body is running at like low efficiency as it rebuilds itself and gets its strength back. But more importantly than me is this woman. A year later, after the donation, I got a handwritten letter from her. And it was like, she couldn't tell me her name yet, but she could say hi. She could like tell me kind of that she has a family. She has 2 kids. She's got a dog, a loving husband, all this stuff. And it has blossomed into just like an amazing relationship that I've had with this woman. Her name is Dorothy, for the past 10 years now. We celebrated the 10-year anniversary last November. Her and her husband flew out here to Bend, where I live, and we got to spend a couple of days together celebrating 10 years since then, which is cool.
How do you process that? I mean, you there's the fact. I did this thing. It saved somebody's life. But then, in time, like, does it hit you? Like, is there any emotional aspect of this? Like, whoa, this is weighty stuff.
Yeah, I tend not to be like the deepest of people in that sense, but I mean, absolutely, you can't ignore. Like, I think the thing that gets me the most is her children, like knowing that they've gotten, I guess that she's gotten to see them grow up, and they've gotten to grow up now with their mom. And as my parents get older, and that like mortality becomes more of a ever present thought in your mind. It's like I can't imagine losing your mom at I think the youngest was maybe 8 or 10 at the time. I don't remember exactly, but that's the thing that I am pretty dang happy about, that they've gotten to maintain, that they've gotten to be together for an extra 10 years now, and that's just pretty sweet. Pretty sweet.
There could be no greater gift anyone could give anyone else than life.
Yeah, for sure. I recommend everybody sign up for it. It's just the best thing that you can do. I mean, donating blood is fantastic, and we should all strive to be better at that. But donating bone marrow is as simple as a cheek swab, and if you are matched with somebody, then you are directly saving that person's life, and it's like, at what cost? Absolutely do it.
I'm going to pivot. When I look at your Instagram, the best way that I can describe what I see is pure. It's pure. Like, I don't feel like you are flying for anybody else than yourself. So I'm observing this, and I write that down. Like, this is how I feel when I watch you. And I also feel as if you as a pilot under whatever wing you're flying, it almost feels like it's part of you. It's not like you controlling a thing. It's as if, to me, when I watch you, it's a sixth sense. It's so natural.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the goal, right?
It's the goal, but few people make me feel the way your videos make me feel. Like, I'm in awe of just how natural and again, I'm going to keep using that word, pure. It's not for the gram. And then I'm doing my little thing on you, and I learned that one of the people that you've admired the most is Tanner Hall. And the reason that you have admired him is that he doesn't ski to impress people. And I'm like, man, I feel like Beau flies for himself.
That's a really funny comparison that I suppose I haven't really thought too much about, but I grew up, I was a fanboy of skiing. So like big mountain, free ride, freestyle skiing. As a kid, that was the sport that I enjoyed watching the most. I just remember, like, you watch certain skiers and they make it look so easy that as a 6-year-old, I was like, I can do that. Why can't I go ski that? Like, look how easy it is. And I suppose that's always been a goal then, is to have that translate over to everything I do, is to make it appear, fluid and simple. And oftentimes, the less you do, the better it's going to be. Now, that obviously has a whole lot of caveats to it. I don't strive to be a fully technically perfect pilot. I just strive to be in touch with the wing, like you say, to be smooth and to make it feel and make it look just like we are one system connected together, rather than I'm trying to tell it to do something.
It looks very non-technical. Sometimes when you see athletes doing a thing that you can see there's processing going on in the brain. I can't see your brain, but I can tell that you're responding with the condition naturally. It's beautiful to watch. And I don't know if you want this because you're flying for you, but I would invite anybody to follow you on Instagram at Beau Riebe, because the flying is incredible to see. And until you see it, this conversation we're having can't really be put into full context until you see what I'm describing, which leaves me just like, I just get caught up in your reels going, wow,
Gee,
that's so extraordinary.
you're too kind.
The thing is you're really I mean, I don't know. I don't think you look at it as if you're on the edge, but you're going at extremely fast speeds, and you're pretty low to the ground depending on what wing that you're flying and what activity you're doing. But when I see you in the Mutant hooking a turn, I don't even know what sort of doing a barrel roll, I suppose.
Sure.
So low to the ground, and I'm like, man, he's making that look so easy. It's incredible.
Well, the Mutant is like hands down been the coolest skydiving what's the right word, like piece of technology that has progressed it so much in the past however long. Having the Mutant just allows such a better connection to the wing, like you kind of are pointing toward. I feel like before, like I've been speed flying, I think I learned to speed flying 2016. So that's 7 years now. The ability to kind of mimic that speed fly body position now in the sky with a wing like the Valkyrie, which is the parachute that I use the most and I'm super comfortable with. It has just like opened up the doors for so much progression in flying. You can, like I'm so grateful to live in a time where you truly can combine speed flying and skydiving now. And that's just a crazy thing to even fathom doing. You fly a normal harness, upright vertical harness, and you feel like you're a sack of potatoes hanging there. Like you're just a dog under that thing. And the wing it's never quite happy. And then you fly with a Mutant and everything kind of comes together. And it's definitely opened so many doors for flight, for competition. Of course, we see those boys are doing and girls, but yeah, we see what they're all doing, and that's super cool. But I'm kind of out of that world now, and much more focusing on combining speed flying with skydiving. So essentially, skydiving with the Mutant over some really cool terrain somewhere beautiful in the world, which is great. Finally, we get to skydive in beautiful, beautiful places, not just in the middle of farmland America. No offense to everywhere out there that's like that.
No offense to the Midwest.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time out there, so it's been fun though, for sure. And I hope that it never comes off as just doing it for social media as well, because that and I don't think anyone wants to do that. It's definitely not the goal. It's definitely cool. I mean, it's just, I think that the thing that excites me the most is just being able to do this activity, combining kind of speed flying, which is one of my favorite things in the world, skydiving, one of my other favorite things in the world, in beautiful places and with friends.
If you're a fan of the 20-Minute Call, I'd like to invite you to be a member of a budding community with me on Patreon. By becoming a patron of the show, you can join me behind the scenes to discuss options for future guests and gain access to some show swag. It's pretty sweet. Details on how to become a patron can be found in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. If Red Bull Air Force calls you tomorrow, is that something that you go, ooh, now I'm having to do this on command on someone else's schedule? Mm-hmm. Or are you thinking, yeah, this is what I want, I'm already doing it?
Well, I mean, I probably couldn't say no. Like you got to take an opportunity if it was there. Life is about being prepared for when the opportunity opens the door. And I would probably jump on something like that, like definitely. But it would, the thing is that I believe that like at the top of any of these sports, you're not going to be asked to do you're not being pursued for your achievements so that somebody can change everything about you. No matter where things go, hopefully it goes in the direction that I'm kind of helping to take it.
You've had what looks like the summer of a lifetime. I mean, you have been in some extraordinary places. I won't ask you like, hey, tell me of the best experience, because it seems like day after day it could be the best experience depending on
Yeah.
what you're doing and what air sport you're participating in. But would you tell me of a story of an adventure you've been on that when you recall it, it makes you smile?
Yeah, totally. Every single day. um, yeah. So, like you said, like there's so many fun times out there that I got to have this summer. I spent 2 months in Europe traveling around, and I got to do some amazing skydives in beautiful places. I got to do some speed flying in beautiful places, paragliding, base jumping, hanging out, drinking wine in France, doing just all the fun things. But I think that like one of my most stoked moments of the summer is probably, and we were in Norway, we were in Voss. It was the end of Extreme Sports Week. We were doing a skydive demonstration on the lake in town. And we got to do 2 jumps from a helicopter. They had a raft set up for us to try to land on in the lake. And I think that there were maybe 8 or so jumpers. And there was Jesse Wire, myself, and Benoit Lemay, all jumping mutants. And I have always wanted to do a barrel roll, touching down on the ground and then pop up and do a barrel roll. Jesse he attempted it in North Carolina about a year ago, but he didn't get any more attempts than that one time. And then there's Ben, who has not much speed fly experience, if any. He's maybe done a handful of barrel rolls in the sky, but again, not too many. And he's just like, if you know Ben, he's got the biggest smile, biggest dorkiest smile, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it too." And just so like I go and it works great and it's super fun and I freaking love it. And then Jesse goes, he does a great job too. And then we get to watch Ben go and just huck this barrel roll after like slamming his butt into the water, ripping on rears, pretty much stalling out the parachute, whipping the thing around and smashing back into the water. And he just is such a goofy, happy guy that I will never forget him just like, just being so excited that it worked and us being equally as stoked, probably more stoked because we know, I guess we know how complicated it is. And he just hucks it and, makes it happen. And it was just like, love it. Just sharing that with him, the three of us, but specifically Benoit, just being the biggest goofball, makes me happy.
Just watching you recount that made me smile.
Yeah, perfect.
Jesse Wire is probably another one of those guys that when I watch them fly, it's extraordinary. Another like all world natural and good, another
Absolutely.
great person.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, as easy as you make things look, as we mentioned earlier, you're pushing hard. Have you had any moments where, whoa, I got away with that and maybe I need to pull back just a little bit here?
Yeah, for sure. Let me think real quick if I can think of the one that pops in my head is a speed fly moment, which let me think if I have a skydive moment that pops in my head. I'm going to go through the speed fly one because that's the thing I can think of really clearly right now. This was not this summer, but the summer prior. And we were in Lauterbrunnen, Switzerland. And speed flying there's like you land in this it's a base jumper landing area, speed flying landing area, paraglide landing area. So it's essentially a big field next to a parking lot. And at the other end of the parking lot, there's a cable car that takes you back up the mountain because it's Switzerland and there's cable cars everywhere. So this was, I think, my second flight, speed flying from up top, landing down in this field. First one went fine. Maybe this flight was the next day or 2 days later. I don't recall exactly how long it had been, but I think at least a day between the first flight and the second flight there. And second flight goes great, no problems. Flying next to the terrain, flying next to the cliff. come in for landing, field's open. I'm going to do I think I was going to do a 270-degree rotation to the left and then come in kind of diagonal across the field from corner to corner, essentially. And I do my turn, come around, snap the wing, and and at that point, I either recall or I see, or maybe a combination of both, that there's power lines running on the side of the field that I'm on, and essentially running like that perimeter, that edge of it, but about 5 yards in from the trees. So right where I would be in my recovery arc, essentially. If I'm going corner to corner, I would have gone right through them. So luckily, like, I do that move. I have this realization that I'm about to be in some serious shit. I can steer back to the right, but the field isn't long enough for me to stay on that side of the power lines. I'm going to get to the edge of the field, which then leads into a parking lot with a whole bunch of cars and trees and rubble. So I essentially have to bring the wing back to the right, get on the deck, on the ground, and smash it over on the left and do a wing over under the power lines into the large part of the field. Yeah, you're shaking your head. That's what I did afterward too. But it all worked, and I did it, and I did the wing over, and like, haha, I stood it up. Oh, cool. But really, it was super sketchy. And I just stood there for a while and was like, that was so dumb. And it was total, complacency, I suppose, like not looking at the landing area again, not reminding myself of these obstacles, as well as in the air, not thinking about what I should be doing ahead of time. I think that's a really important part of skydiving, is thinking ahead 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is, or speed flying too, whatever sport we're doing, you should always think ahead. But I hadn't clearly done that very well. And so that was a sketchy moment that I got away with it, got lucky, but it could have been worse. Could have been really bad. I would have hit those lines going real fast.
This past weekend, John DeVore made his first jump back since his speed flying accident, which, when you look at the trauma he endured on, I think that was a speed flying accident for him. Like, does it make you pause when that happened? Because, for those that know John or have observed him for these years, like, he's not the guy that's going to get injured. He's got, seems to have all of his stuff together. Did his injury or accident cause you to pause for a moment? Like, and let me also mention, I noticed on your helmet, you've got a sticker of Shane McConkey, like another guy that doesn't die from doing what he's doing. He's the guy.
Yeah, for sure. Shane was a huge inspiration my entire life. So that one, he still try to live like Shane. I think, like, specifically to John, I didn't exactly hear all the details of his accident. I heard little tidbits here and there. And for me, the way that I deal with anybody getting hurt or any accident is I definitely look at it from a calculation perspective. Maybe this has to do with like my numbers background in college or whatnot, but I for sure look at like the factors that led to it. So I can't speak specifically to John's because I don't know off the top of my head either all of everything that happened. But I will say, like, anytime anybody gets hurt, I try to look at what were the reasons for it, and is it pilot induced? Is it environment induced? Where were the decisions made that led to that happening, right? And there's always decisions, for sure. And at the end of the day, like, it's terrible to say, but it's almost always also the pilot's fault, at least to some degree. Could have chosen not to fly. Maybe there was something pointing to some indicator saying, don't do this, whatever the case. And again, not specifically about John, because I don't know the details, but that's just how I look at things in general, is where were the decisions made? And then, you try to learn from that. You try to analyze those decisions. And I've for sure done dumb things that I look back on and it's like, I should not have done that. And I absolutely got away with it. I try at least to, anytime I'm on a launch or going to do something or whatever it is, a stunt of some type, I try to look at every piece of information that I can get to make myself as, essentially as educated as possible going into that maneuver. Because if I don't believe in my head that it makes sense or that it's feasible or safe or whatever, then I don't think I should do it. That doesn't mean that it is feasible or safe. That just means that I should be telling myself that it is. Now, hopefully those two meet at a very nice line, and hopefully they mesh together. But at least in my mind, like, I try to do things to where I believe that the equation adds up.
Beau, who do you look up to in air sports as an influence to you today? And who do you look up to outside of sport as an influence on you today?
I think that there are people that have like done some incredibly influential things who are, maybe a little bit more relaxed now. Like, for example, in canopy piloting, you have to tip your hat to some of the founders of CP. So like Shannon Pilchner, Ian Bobo, Jay Maletsky, as well as Rickster. Like, these guys, hearing stories of what they accomplished without knowing any better, like, how they realized to use front risers or how they learned about rear risers, that kind of stuff I always find pretty inspirational and pretty moving. I think that idea of trying new things, like trying things that haven't been done, has always kind of been maybe a fundamental, like a core inspiration for me of like, how do you even word that? Like, trying new stuff, essentially. Like, that's a very boring way to say it, but yeah, those guys, those people that were the founders are the ones that I really think are amazing. You look at canopy piloting competitions now, and you look at like Ben Giuseppe, for example. He pretty much mastered the supine style harness in a competition manner. And without him, would there have been as much push to try the mutant for other people? Hard to know. And that gave us the mutant. So like, I'm grateful for things like that. Vince Raffet and Fred Fugan to the same kind of degree, but Vince for sure. I mean, Vince is Vince. There will never be another like him, and what he contributed is just fantastic. Just great. It allows us to do what we do. So I look up to people that have contributed major accomplishments, major innovations in the sport. And that goes true to, canopy design, as well as harness design, as well as like what you do with the parachute.
How about outside of air sports?
So, I always look at people that do like amazing human feats, like mountaineering feats. That's another side of my life that I try to pay attention to, but people that are just conquering like huge distances in uncomfortable weather, up mountains, down mountains. I've gotten really intrigued with like para-alpinism. So it's combining paragliding, descents with mountaineering or ski mountaineering. And that idea is just, that seems like one of the most fun things you could do. Like, go suffer your way up a mountain and then fly down. Anybody that's getting after it on that level, I look up to them for that. I think that one of the things that I've always looked out for beyond skydiving is like a sense of suffering. Like, we have to kind of push ourselves, and skydiving doesn't have that much physical exertion. And no offense to the people that may see it slightly differently, but that's what draws me so much to skiing or ski mountaineering or speed flying, is that you're up before the sun comes up, and you're hiking for miles up, and you're in beautiful places, but like, there's that sense of you earned it a little bit, which we don't always get with skydiving. You pay your money and you get a ride to the top, which is great too. But I definitely need that other part in my life also. So I look up to people that do that as well.
This podcast is sponsored by Beyond Marketing, the digital marketing agency for the skydiving industry. Now, I'm not a fan of lots of ads during a podcast. I mean, who likes ads? So I'll stop talking about how marvelously wonderful Beyond Marketing is. But if you're curious about what the amazing people of Beyond Marketing do to help drop zones and manufacturers thrive, then you should check out their website at dropzone.marketing. That's dropzone.marketing. I'm curious, you always get an insight of what people are into based on either what they're reading or listening to on podcasts. If you're a reader, what are you reading? Or in terms of podcasts, what are you listening to?
So I haven't been reading lately. One book that is sitting on my...
You have been a little busy. I have noticed.
I guess so. There's always time to read, though, if you want to read. I do want to read. It's like a basic wilderness first aid book. And so that's something that I think that I, as well as everybody, could learn more about. And, when that really gets in your face is when, this is really sad to say, but when somebody crashes at a drop zone, for example, hopefully like alive, hopefully fine, but they've injured themselves, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. I guess I'll just stand over here and call the cops, and then call the ambulance and let somebody else go help them. When you go through that experience enough, you eventually are just like, I should really learn a little bit more about what to do. So that's on my list. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen mostly to Radiolab on NPR, or I just like to learn kind of random things about the world, hear creative stories from all over the world. And I enjoy those NPR podcasts that are informational and educational and unique.
Cool. Very interesting.
But I listen to yours too. I listened to a couple of yours. Shoot, that was my opportunity to say the 20-minute call.
I wasn't fishing.
I did listen to.
I wasn't fishing. That's okay. I'm a huge consumer of How I Built This with Guy Raz. Also used to be an NPR, maybe still is, but
yeah,
really
totally
into that.
Yeah, radio,
big time
though.
Into a lot of those programs, Radiolab included.
It's fantastic.
We're gonna wind this down, but there's a picture on your Instagram of you. I mentioned you do Flight 1 military, and there's a picture on your Instagram where you cannot divulge, which makes it even more mysterious, where you are jumping, but you are in military, uniform kit. Thank you. So what do you do for as much as you can tell us in this shroud of mystery? What do you do with Flight 1 military?
Yeah, sure. So what we do essentially is...
Now, I see you looking up the ceiling. Like, are you trying to figure out how to deliver this message without delivering too much?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely a sensitive subject that is sometimes, you have to be careful with how much you disclose. And there's the basics of flying a parachute. So like landings, right? That's obvious. We teach, we do courses where we work on landings, we work on patterns, that kind of thing. The more exciting job is, or when it ramps up from there, is the fundamentals of flying your parachute around other parachutes in the air, so that you can essentially, if I'm looking at it from a military jumper perspective, we as a group can open our parachutes really high above the ground. We can get together in some sort of organized fashion. We can travel to a location and we can land safely and together. We teach everything that goes along with that, right? So that's like how to fly with other people, how to do formations, how to navigate the winds, how to navigate ground obstacles, where you should be getting out of the plane, where the plane should be flying, how to deal with different possible conditions that you may be landing in. And then, it kind of like spreads from there a little bit, but it's that whole world, which has been really cool. I've really enjoyed seeing skydiving as not as more than just like a fun activity that we're so lucky and grateful and fortunate to get to do it. And it's actually like a job. They have a real world purpose. And one of the coolest things that you cannot forget is that the skydive part of a military jumper is literally just their transportation there. That's just them getting to then do the rest of their job. And so it's like such a small part, but of course, if it goes wrong, it's such a critical part. It's really neat to be able to work with these individuals and these units in a sense that they have so much respect for us teaching them, all this parachute stuff. And then, of course, we have so much respect for what they do beyond that.
I know many people that, many of our mutual friends that work with military in various, but I don't know many that get to do it in locales that is not like at the same location, in the same Dust Bowl desert area. You know what I mean? So when I see the locales, not knowing where they are in the world, but it looks amazing, and that you get to have a job that says, I can't tell you everything. That's kind of cool.
Kind of cool. Well, sorry, James, I can't tell you where it was. You can keep trying, but
you'll have to kill me if you tell me.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that's pretty much what pays the bills so that you can live the lifestyle that you're living?
That, and I still do work for Performance Designs. Yeah, so I've worked for them. I was a tour rep, the U.S. tour rep for many years. That was 2016 to 2019. I was the U.S. tour rep, and then I left for about 6 months to a year. Then at that time, I started with Flight 1. Then I've been doing Flight 1 ever since then, but I did join back with PD in 2021 again, I believe, and I essentially handle government contracts for the company. So it's whenever military jumpers for military training purposes are using sport canopies. So they use different sport parachutes that Performance Designs builds, and they, whether it's U.S. based or foreign militaries, when they want to acquire canopies, I'm kind of the liaison from the company to those units or to the dealer, whomever is purchasing for the military. So it's government client relations is the technical name of the position, but that is still a big chunk of my paycheck as well. Very grateful to have that as well.
This is not a knock on the tour rep job because it's an important job. I think if you're a young skydiver, that looks like you're living the dream. If you do that for a few years on the road, it's a grind. But man, you have progressed past the boogie tour scene mightily. Right. Congrats to you. I mean, clearly it's because you represent the company so well, and you continue to progress. So,
well, thank you. Yeah,
congrats.
It was. I mean, who doesn't want to live a life of? Well, 3 things I shouldn't say on camera, but it was great. It was super fun. We traveling around in my young to mid 20s. It was fantastic, and being a tour rep was like a highlight of my life. But the constant travel got tiring. I do enjoy other activities besides skydiving, like you say, and being able to transition, being able to grow and still be at PD, but grow into a job that is a little bit more, it's a bit more at home based, which is nice. It's a little bit more, I guess, like big world picture, like dealing with clients all over the world rather than going to individual boogies. So it gives me a different perspective on the company, right? It's not as like customer interaction, one-on-one interfacing. It's seeing the company selling across the world in many different manners and to many different organizations, and how the company kind of thrives in that regard. So it's been a really good transition to like you say, kind of grow from small scale, equally as important, but small scale to eyes on like a different and larger, physically larger picture.
How are your parents dealing with this, with your career? Are they like, that's our Beau, or like, I mean, are they worried?
Oh, no, not anymore. No. I mean, of course, my mom, she still sends me job openings for whatever. Just, she at least recognizes that I am going to do whatever I do in life. It's going to be kind of unique in a sense. It's not going to be your standard 9 to 5, but she's always on the lookout for like some kind of creative, fun job out there in the world. And it's not that she wants me to change or anything like that. I think that they're both very proud of how, and amazed by how skydiving has treated me. When you're in skydiving long enough, you kind of always ask yourself, like, is there, like, should I be looking elsewhere, or like, is this going to take me until I'm 65 or 70 years old or whatever, 60 years old? Heck, can I retire at 40? Probably not.
If you were to close the chapter on, say, performance designs and Red Bull doesn't call, if you dream about, all right, this is what I want to do next as a career, what is that?
That's such a good question, and one that if I had a specific answer, then I would tell you. I know how I would want to live. So like the lifestyle is pretty important. I would enjoy dealing with like the environment, like something outdoors, the environment a little bit more. I always say if I could go back to school, which I can go back to school, but if I did go back to school, I would much over an economics degree, I would much prefer to do like a geography or geology degree, something to learn about the earth, rocks, the history of everything that we get to do outside, and like how these mountains came to be, and how the climate is affected by humans, or just anything to do with like the physical world that we get to touch, the ground and the trees and all that stuff. I'm much more interested in that now as a 32-year-old than I was at 18 years old.
I could see that. I mean, you're enjoying that. You're enjoying being in all of that.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Final question, Beau. Can you identify a crossroads moment in your life where, had you not said yes to, you might not be where you are today?
Yeah. Saying yes to this interview. I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now. No, for sure. The most obvious one is when I left my corporate job. I was working at Wells Fargo after that stint at University of Iowa, got my degree, got a job with Wells Fargo, loved every single moment of it. And that's all sarcasm. It was like 9 to 5 in a cubicle, sitting at a desk, looking at a computer, reading documents and not caring about anything at all about it. And I did that for almost a year, didn't even make it a year, but we were going into spring season, and I got an offer from Chicagoland Skydiving Center to go out there and work as a tandem instructor, AFF instructor, and videographer. And I had done work as a tandem instructor before, but never as a full-time thing, just as a part-time on the weekends. That was like a big question. Do I want to do this? Is this going to ruin other things? Is this going to ruin other opportunities? Or like, that was a huge crossroad where if I did say yes and I went out there, but if I had said no, if I'd kept it at Wells Fargo, who the heck knows where I would be right now? That's for sure. I don't think I would still be at Wells Fargo, but I might be somewhere else in the world. That's for sure. Going into skydiving, like buying an RV, moving out to the drop zone, and being a full-time skydiver, that's when it all began. And that's where it's led me. That's what it's led me to here.
The thought of you being in a small office working 9 to 5 sounds like the worst thing one could do to you.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable for a while. I didn't belong there. But I appreciate that you can see that and that you can tell that. And thanks for the words of encouragement.
Beau, it's been such a pleasure. And I appreciate we went a little bit long. I'm grateful for you hanging with me on this selfish venture that is me charading that I've got a podcast just so that I can get access to the people that I'm just so curious about. Thank you for being the ambassador that you are to not just skydiving, but, insert Beau's name over, the blank that is the air sport that you're doing. It's refreshing.
Well, cool. I appreciate that. And right back at you. You've been a great ambassador to the sport and a connection between so many people all over the world for the past, I think I've known you for about 6-7 years now as well. So during that entire time, you've bounced around and made all these fantastic connections and grown a beautiful network. So thank you for what you do as well, James.
Cheers, my friend. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you always have the latest episode, which is released every Monday. If you want to contact the team, our email address is podcast@beyondmarketing.xyz. This episode was edited and engineered by Garnet Znydrick of the YouTube channel Blue Skies, Fun Days. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for our next episode.